When we get to Article 11 of the Belgic Confession about the Holy Spirit being true and eternal God, there's a number of things that we need to talk about. We need to talk about the personhood of God, of the Holy Spirit, for that is sometimes denied. We need to talk about the divinity of the Holy Spirit, for that as well is often denied. But before we get to that, I just want to talk, give some historical notes pertaining then to the first sentence of Article 11, which starts off this way: "We believe and confess also that the Holy Spirit from eternity proceeds from the Father and the Son." So those words, especially these words then, proceeds from the Father and the Son, speak volumes about a historical debate and dispute and schism in the church. They are related to actually what is called the Great Schism of 1054. So a very old schism, almost a millennium old. Now what is that about? Well, if you go to the Nicene Creed, then you find there the confession about the Holy Spirit. You find these words: "And we believe in the Holy Spirit, the Lord and giver of life, who proceeds from the Father and the Son." The Father and the Son. So almost identical words to what you read here. Now the Council of Nicaea was 325, but what is called the Nicene Creed was not formally adopted by the Church, the Catholic Church, until 381, the Council of Constantinople. But at this time, the church was still united. It was the Catholic Church, but there were two centers of power. There was Rome, led by what had come to be called the Pope, and there was Constantinople. So this was the other center of power, and it was under the authority and jurisdiction of what were called the patriarchs. Now there was some liturgical differences and certainly political differences. The Pope and the Patriarch, they ruled over their various parts of the church as princes. So the Pope ruled over the western half of the church, and the Patriarch ruled over the eastern half of the church. And there was power struggles between the two, but also doctrinal struggles. And one of the fundamental doctrinal struggles was on the doctrine of the Holy Spirit. And it centered around one Latin word, filioque, which is one word meaning "and the Son." The debate was whether the Holy Spirit proceeded only from the Father or from the Father and the Son. Now the West included this confession. They said the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son, The eastern half of the church rejected that. They said no, the Holy Spirit proceeds only from the Father. So this was a significant doctrinal difference between the two. Now the Pope in 1054 was Leo IX, and he sent a delegation to Constantinople to the patriarch, who at this time was Michael, sorry, I'm spelling that wrong, Michael Carolarius. Okay, that he was the patriarch at this time. So both of these gentlemen had huge power. Now Leo IX sent a delegation to Carolarius and told him that he had to submit to, that he had to recognize the Pope as the head of the one Catholic Church, and he had some other demands about some liturgical demands, but also the doctrinal demand that he had to, that the Eastern Church, the eastern half of the church, side of the church, centered in Constantinople and points east of that, also had to submit to this doctrinal point, that the Holy Spirit proceeds not only from the Father but also from the Son. Now, Carolarius refused. He refused all these demands of the Pope, and the delegation, whether or not they were empowered by the Pope to do this is not known, but regardless of whether or not they are empowered to do it, they excommunicated the patriarch. Okay, so the delegation excommunicated from the church Carolarius. Carolarius said, "Not so quick," and he excommunicated the delegation, the papal legates. So this was a huge conflict in the church, and it caused separation. So it caused the Great Schism of 1054, and that has never been healed. Although in 1965, Pope Paul VI, did send some, sort of fraternal delegates to Constantinople, and the patriarch of the time, they agreed to lift the anathemas, the curses, the mutual excommunications. Okay, so they lifted the anathemas in 1065. So they no longer nullified the excommunications, mutual excommunications, although the churches have not unified. Now, where does the Reformed Church, the Reformed churches, where do they fit into this picture? Well, they follow the Western confession, and they reject the Eastern confession. They follow the Western. We follow the Western confession, that the Holy Spirit does proceed from both the Father and the Son. So that's just some historical notes. Those opening words of Article 11, which says that the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son, you see that those few words, easily read over, contain a huge theological question and of great historical import in church history. So the next lesson, we're going to start looking at a little closer at what we're confessing. And as I said, what we need to speak about is the personhood of the Holy Spirit and the divinity. So that's what we're going to start looking at in the next lessons.